I never thought a quiet afternoon would change everything. I was sitting in my room, scrolling through old family papers, when I stumbled across a folder I had never seen before. My heart skipped a beat. It was labeled, Financial Statements, Confidential. At first, I thought maybe it was nothing. Maybe just old bills my father had misplaced. But then I saw it. A secret account. One I had never known existed. One that carried my family's hidden money, and yet, somehow, my father had never told me. I couldn't move. My hands shook. How could he keep something like this from me? My dad had always been honest, or so I thought. And yet here it was, a bank account filled with funds that I had every right to know about, carefully hidden, as if it were a weapon rather than a resource. I took a deep breath and tried to remind myself to stay calm. I was raised to think before I act. My mother had always said, clarity comes before action. But clarity was nowhere to be found. This was chaos wrapped in secrecy. Then came the shock. The account wasn't just dormant. There were transactions, withdrawals, transfers, and someone else had been accessing it. Someone who shouldn't have. My pulse quickened. I immediately thought of Linda, my stepmom. She had always smiled too much, said the right things, made herself seem like part of the family in the gentlest way possible. Everyone adored her. Everyone except me. Something about her felt calculated. The last time I had noticed anything strange was during a family dinner. Linda had casually mentioned, it's easier when your father helps manage things. Back then, I brushed it off. But now, looking at these numbers, it all made sense. Every subtle suggestion, every polite concern, was part of a plan I had ignored until now. I felt a mix of disbelief and fear. Fear that my dad had let this happen. Fear that I hadn't noticed sooner. But even more than that, anger. The kind of anger that doesn't explode, but smolders quietly, waiting for the right moment to strike. I began piecing it together. Dates, amounts, notes in the margins. Every transaction lined up with moments when I was away, at work, at college, traveling. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. My mind raced. I remembered every time Linda had commented on money subtly, framed as helpful advice. Every remark had felt harmless, polite, until now. Until I saw the evidence. I realized I had a choice. I could confront them now in anger, risking a family storm I might never survive. Or I could wait, observe, collect every piece of proof, build a strategy. Because once you let panic dictate your actions, you lose. But control could change everything. I sat back, letting the folder lie on my lap. I didn't know exactly what I would do next. But I knew one thing. From this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. This wasn't just a secret account. This was a test. And I wasn't going to fail. I didn't say a word. Not to my father. Not to Linda. Not to anyone. I closed the folder. Put it back exactly where I found it. And walked out of the room like nothing had happened. That night at dinner, I watched them. My father talked about work, tired but calm. Linda served food, smiling like always. But now, that smile looked different. Too measured. Too controlled. She asked casually, "So, how are things going with your finances these days?" I felt it. That familiar pressure wrapped in politeness. I looked up, met her eyes, and said lightly, "Fine. I've got everything handled." Her smile tightened, just for half a second. Most people wouldn't notice. But I did. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was checking. Over the next few days, I became invisible. I stopped reacting. Stopped correcting her. Stopped defending myself. And that's when she got bolder. She started helping. Organizing mail. Sorting documents. Moving things that were never hers to touch. One afternoon, I came home and found my desk drawers slightly open. Nothing missing. But something felt disturbed. Like someone had been searching. That night, I checked my bank app. Another alert. Another attempted login. Different device. Different location. Same intention. I didn't panic. I documented everything. Screenshots. Dates. Times. I called the bank quietly and locked things down. New passwords. Two-factor authentication. Silent monitoring. I didn't block access completely. Not yet. Because I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was watching a trap close. Linda started dropping hints more often. "Your father worries about you. Family money should stay in the family. We just want to make sure you're safe." Safe. That word again. The same word people use when they're trying to cage you. Then came the conversation she didn't expect. She cornered me in the kitchen, voice soft, friendly. Sweetheart, don't you think it's time your dad helped manage your accounts? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I smiled and said, I already have a system, but thanks for caring. Her eyes flickered. Annoyance. Impatience. Fear. Because silence wasn't working the way she thought it would. A week later, my father called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. Linda sat beside him, hands folded, playing the supportive wife. He said, Linda mentioned you might need help managing things. There it was. The setup. I took a breath and said calmly, I don't, but I'm curious why my private accounts are being accessed. The room went still. Linda laughed, too quickly. Oh, honey, that must be a mistake. I pulled out my phone, showed the alerts, the timestamps, the locations. I didn't accuse. I didn't explain. I just let the silence stretch. My father looked at Linda, really looked at her. And for the first time, she didn't have the right smile ready. That's when I understood something powerful. She thought my silence meant ignorance. She thought my calm meant weakness. But silence isn't absence. Sometimes. It's surveillance. And she had no idea how much I already knew. After that night, nothing was said out loud. But everything had changed. My father didn't confront Linda. Not directly. Instead, he grew quieter. He started noticing things he used to ignore. The way Linda hovered when money came up. The way she listened too closely. The way her questions were never really questions, they were probes. And Linda? She felt it. You could see it in her movements. The confidence was gone. Now she watched me the way hunters watch traps, carefully, nervously, unsure if they've already been caught. She stopped touching my things. Stopped mentioning finances. For a while. Then she switched tactics. Victim mode. One evening, I heard her crying softly in the living room. Not sobbing. Not breaking down. Just enough sound to be heard. I just don't feel trusted, she said to my father. I only want what's best for this family. I stayed in my room. Silent. Listening. Because this wasn't about trust. This was about losing access. A few days later, something strange happened. My credit monitoring app sent a notification. A soft inquiry. Someone had tried to open a line of credit in my name. Not successful. But deliberate. Careful. I didn't react. I didn't call her out. I added it to the file. Because now it was clear, this wasn't curiosity. This was intent. That night, I sat at my desk and realized something important. Linda wasn't reckless. She was patient. And people like that don't stop unless they're forced to. So I stopped playing defense. I started preparing an ending. I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor, quietly. Then a lawyer. Then another meeting with my father. Just the two of us. No Linda. I showed him everything. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Just facts. Alerts. Attempts. Patterns. I let him reach his own conclusions. His hands shook slightly as he scrolled. This isn't a coincidence, he said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The next week, Linda noticed the shift. My father changed passwords. Locked his office. Stopped sharing details. She asked questions. He deflected. He deflected. And that scared her. One night, she confronted me directly. No sweetness. No smile. Just quiet anger. You think you're smarter than me, she said. I met her gaze. Calm. Measured. I think you crossed a line. Her face hardened. You have no proof. I tilted my head slightly and said, You're right. Not proof. I paused. Yet, that word hit her harder than any accusation. Because she knew. She knew how careful she'd been. And she knew how much I must have seen to still be standing this calmly. From that moment on, she avoided me. But avoidance isn't surrender. It's retreat. And retreat means regrouping. I could feel something coming. Late nights. Whispered phone calls. Locked doors. She was planning her last move. And I let her. Because the truth is, the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate someone who's been watching you quietly the entire time. And Linda still thought this story was hers to control. She was wrong. Linda made her move on a Tuesday. Not loudly. Not suddenly. Carefully. She waited until my father was out of town. A work conference. 2 nights. Plenty of space. That evening, she knocked on my door. Soft. Polite. The way people knock when they think they still have leverage. "I think we should talk," she said. I stepped aside and let her in. That alone threw her off. She sat across from me, folding her hands like this was a negotiation. "I feel like things have become tense," she said. "And I don't like living in a house where I'm being watched." I almost smiled. Instead, I said nothing. Silence does that. It makes people talk themselves into mistakes. She leaned forward. "I've done nothing wrong," she said. "But if you feel uncomfortable, maybe we can find a solution." There it was. The offer. The trap. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents. Trust paperwork. Power of attorney drafts. Emergency authorization. She had planned this for a long time. "If something ever happened to your father," she said gently, "it would be easier if everything was already aligned." Aligned. That was her word. I closed the folder. Slowly. Then I stood up and walked to my desk. I opened a drawer and placed my own folder on the table. Thicker. Heavier. Her eyes flicked to it. "What's that?" she asked. "Documentation," I said. She laughed, just once. "You don't scare me." I opened the folder. Bank alerts. Credit inquiries. Recorded timestamps. Email logs. Legal letters. And then I placed my phone on top. Screen on. Recording active. Her smile vanished. "I figured," I said calmly. "If you like preparations so much, you'd appreciate thoroughness." She stood up abruptly. "You're accusing me of crimes." "No," I said. "I'm documenting patterns." She tried to recover. Tried to threaten. "You think anyone will believe you?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Then I said the one thing she wasn't ready for. "My father already has." Her face went pale. The next morning, my father came home early. Very early. Linda was waiting for him. She cried. She blamed stress. She blamed misunderstanding. He listened. Then he asked one question. "Why did you try to access accounts that weren't yours?" She didn't answer. Because there was no safe answer. By the end of the week, she moved out. Quietly. No drama. No scene. Just boxes. And silence. The lawyers handled the rest. Restraining clauses. Asset separation. Legal distance. She never contacted me again. Months passed. The house felt different. Lighter. One night, I stood in my childhood room and finally took down my mother's old calendar. I didn't need it there anymore. Because for the first time since she died, I felt protected. Not by strength. Not by anger. But by boundaries. People think silence means weakness. It doesn't. Silence means you're listening. Learning. Measuring. And when you finally speak, you don't raise your voice. You end the conversation. She thought my silence meant I didn't see her. That was her biggest mistake. Because I saw everything. And I was ready long before she ever realized. This story was never hers to control.